Don't listen to those voices in the 80's buses, kids. You will pee-pee.
Hey, I'm your host, Kristen Ford. Welcome to Spooky Season Songcast. Just a quick trigger warning. Today's episode has mention of drugs, alcohol, depression, and murder. If you or someone you know needs help, please dial 988 for the free crisis hotline. All right, enough with the jibba jabba. Let's get into spooky. Our story winds up in a tour bus crisscrossing America. But it all really started right here in Los Angeles, California. It's hard to separate rock and roll from the devil. It's hard to separate all of this sunshine and blue skies and perfect sculpted bodies and chiseled jawlines from the silver screens from something far more sinister. Our story begins with somebody you know well, the infamous Charles Manson. Not everyone knows that he was just an aspiring singer-songwriter trying to get invited to the right parties and schmooze with the right people to have them overlook his rap being in and out of prison growing up and, just focus on the songs. I mean, the Beach Boys thought his songwriting was good enough, they cut one of his tunes. They did rename it. It was a B-side, it wasn't a single. But maybe there was something to it, to that Charles Manson who resulted in the death of 9 people. So Charles Manson, hanging out with hip record producers, inspired by the Beatles, charismatic, followers. But everything changed in 1969 when they headed to 150 Celio Drive in beautiful Beverly Hills, California. That's where Sharon Tate was murdered. And in her blood, they scrawled pig on the door. Story has it that 9 Inch Nails, Trent Reznor, was just going about his business and toured the house. It was cheaper than all the other ones in the neighborhood. It had a nice pool. It only came up later that, oh, whoops, there was a murder here. And, he was just looking for a place to record the album, so why not? How about we call it La Pig? That's not offensive to the pregnant lady who was stabbed to death in her belly and then had her own blood written on the door. Pig. Helter Skelter indeed. The Beatles would be pissed. They were all about peace and love, man. Anyway, maybe you've heard the song Closer? I wanna fuck you like an animal? Well, there was a little bit of magic in those walls. The same 4 walls where Sharon Tate lost her life to the Manson gang. Because it cranked out the most commercially successful record that 9 Inch Nails has ever made. Their biggest hit was right there. Recording the downward spiral in a haunted house. Sure, maybe that makes a little extra bing, bing, bing behind the music. It is the biggest commercial hit, but not without taking its own toll. Because shortly after releasing the downward spiral in 1994, Trent Reznor suffered from depression. He lost his grandmother, and then he began abusing alcohol, cocaine, and other drugs. He would be in and out of abuse and depression for years, finally completing rehab in 2001. I don't know if the house affected him or not. It certainly affected Marilyn Manson, who of course wanted to record in the same studio where Charles Manson, his namesake, committed the first of several murders. And Marilyn Manson has toured with Slipknot and Korn, and that's where our story is going to pick up. Just like that, you go from the Hollywood Hills to a cult leader to the favorite songs of our favorite bands to my buddy sitting next to me in a seat in East Nashville finding things in a bus that no one should find, and doing things with them that I hate to even reproduce, but stick with us. You've made it this far. I hope you've got a pumpkin spice this or that in hand, because it's about to get spooky. Take it away, Kalen.
Hello, my name is Kalen Chase. I'm with Kristen Ford, and this is my spooky story from the road. Dun, 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 just in case there was some cool thing. All right. So I was on the road in the late 2000s, I believe it's 2007, and we were doing and by we, I mean I was touring with the band Korn, a large form American tour. We were doing like one of those gnarly 10-weekers.
Whoa.
Yeah, and it was, unfortunately, the longest tour. I was on the bus with the drummer who was standing, Joey Jordison from Slipknot, and he and I were best buddies on the road, and so we basically got our own bus on that tour. It was mostly his bus, I will say that, but I was the other guy. It was not a lot of people, but it was fucked from Jump Street. Can I say fucked?
Absolutely.
Okay, it was fucked from Jump Street, so we had issues, then it broke down. We fixed it that day. Then it broke down again, and finally we're in the middle of the U.S. because we were doing a B-market tour. For those people who don't know, that means we're not doing like Chicago, L.A., New York. We're doing cities that don't get to see the band as often, and we love those because they're the best shows. But you're traveling back roads in Missouri and other places, so we're on a road 50 miles away from anything, and we have to get another bus because now it's all fucked. The engine is gone. The bus rolls up. It is a 1980-something curved white bus that apparently some form of butt rock band toured in. I don't remember which one it was, but like in one moment there's violence in the air.
You said butt rock band and the truck just drove by.
Well, they were clearly
Their
listening to
micro-penis.
Bon Jovi smashing their dong with a fucking hand. It doesn't matter. They can tie it off with a hammock and, all right. Anyway, in this 80s bus, because it was kind of like a van. It had enough room for all of us. It was the most 80s bus. Velvet. Curved like a VW van, powered doors where you pushed a button and the door slid open. Of course, it only worked every now and then, so we joked around that it was haunted because it would just do things. We were on this bus for 3 days. Day 1, I actually went and hung out on another bus because I was like, I don't like this bus. Day 2, we're driving, it's a 12-hour run. One place in the middle of America to a way farther place. And I knew I had to be on there. So I took my bunk and I put my stuff in, and we're just sitting here, and the door is now opening and closing, whether it wants to or not. We have to like kind of force it, but then when you push the button, it opens halfway. So you slide through. Keep that gut thin. All this stuff is happening. So we do our usual thing. Finish the show. Joey and I are getting ready for bed. A few other people that were on the bus, the techs and stuff like that, we do our, good nights. But I was in a mood because I was affected by the power of this bus. It was the first time I slept in there. Once I got in the bunk, I was like, oh my God, this bus is haunted. This is 80s butt rock bus central.
If not everybody knows what a tour bus bunk feels like, do you want to describe like the dimensions of just your basic?
Well, I don't know how many people live in coffins, but if you're in an apartment or in a room with a standard closet that's not a walk-in closet, lay on the bottom of your closet. I used to sleep in a closet because I liked tour buses, so lay in the bottom of a long form, like non-deep closet, and that's what a tour bus is. That's your bunk, which I love. So it was my little coffin. As I pulled the curtain closed, and everybody was in tour. So you generally have 3 bunks high. I was on the bottom right, passenger seat. There's a lounge with a couch and things, so pull me back into bunk alley is what we call it. Try to visualize. Here I am, laying there in my little bunk, saying goodnight to everybody. There's like 6 people on this bus because a couple of people bailed. And then I realize there's drugs on this bus. That's the thought I get. And I say it out loud. I'm like, dude, this is an 80s bus. There's drugs on this bus. And everybody says, that's crazy, Kalen. And I'm going to do a quick pause here. I was in my early 20s. I don't recommend behavior like this. Don't do it. But I did it. And I can't get sued for it because it's been too long. Anyway, I'm yelling that I think there's drugs in this bus. And I can feel them. The door opens and closes again. Like it's like a...
No one's touching the button.
No, the door just does it every now and then. And I felt like it responded to me, so I was like, all right. So I reached my hand. Now, this bus has been cleaned. This bus has been... The little bunks that you put in the beds, in the bunks, have been changed. There's no way. It's not like I got up and checked the vents, but I reached my little fingies into a crevice in my bunk that I chose that night and pulled out a tiny piece of cellophane. A tiny piece, like a chick... No, it was like a...
Tic Tac?
Imagine 1/4 of a Tic Tac, like a peppercorn.
Wow.
It was a peppercorn. That's the best way. Wrapped in cellophane. Out of my bunk. And I say, boys, I found drugs. No, you didn't. I said, yes, I did. And we go through the story about how this has been cleaned and how we got it, and there's no possible way that somebody would just leave drugs, and I shouldn't open it, and I opened it. And there was a tiny little pill. It was a strange color. Didn't know what it was. So I ate it. But I knew that there were magical 80s drugs on this bus. And at that age, I wanted to do those drugs. So I did those drugs.
So this pill is at least 10, 15 years old?
It was 2007 or 8. I mean, no, this bus, I have no idea.
17-year-old.
It could be,
pill.
or it could have been like some random person got it before. I have no idea, but I just knew that I would find a random fun thing to do. And so now everybody's leaning out of their bunk like, you know, like some sitcom. What's happening? I was like, guys, I just took it. And then all of a sudden I go, oh. 10 minutes later, I start feeling good. I'm like, it's pretty nice, guys. I don't know what this is. This is a mistake. Don't do this. And then we chit-chat for a while, and the next thing I know, I'm in some Midwestern city. In my drummer's hotel room. Face down on the bed. In the same clothes I was wearing. Because I hadn't got a chance to pop my pants off. Because, you know, I'd pop them off in the bus bunk, and you put on your, you know, you do what you do. I was in my clothes. Face down on the bed, and I wake up and the sun is bright. I say, what? And they said, what? He was there, my drummer, Joey, and somebody else was like, the only reason we didn't call the cops or the hospital was because you were breathing. We thought somebody poisoned you because one of them didn't believe Joey that I found drugs and things. They thought something wrong. Like, they were freaking out, and I was like, ah, blah, 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 blah. All right. Took a pill. I'm fine. Everything's fine. How long has it been? 18 hours.
Whoa.
Yeah. Don't know what this was. But I
Did you
get
miss
up.
a gig?
No, of course not. It was a day off. I wouldn't have taken the drug if it wasn't a day off. You got to be professional.
Oh, got it.
I'm in the hotel. I haven't even gotten to my room yet. So I get up, and then there's pee on his bed. Because once the bus driver and Joey, somebody else, had to pick me up out of the bunk. None of this is remembered. I don't black out often, and I have an eidetic memory. I remember most of my weird stories. I was gone. I knew it was there. I knew it. I heard the spirit call. And the spirit decided to let me pee myself all over my buddy's bed, which I think is amazing.
And were you in the piss clothes?
Yeah. I got up and I said, "Duh." He said, "Yeah. Well, I owe you a bevy."
Do you remember having any, like, trippy experiences, or just you felt good and then you were just
I remember it was like a countdown from getting like your wisdom teeth pulled out. I remember, but it was longer. I remember being the most elated, like whatever this thing was.
Yeah.
And I remember waking up knowing that I had the best dreams, but I don't remember them.
Wow.
It was a blackout that I've never done something like that. But everybody, I pulled the drug out. I showed them the cellophane, and everybody's like, "Oh my God, don't take that." I just remember, of course I did, because I'm a fool. And I'm glad I survived, because that could kill somebody. Don't do that. But this bus, this pale white, looks like an old Telecaster, like round and weird.
Yeah.
And there I was. I had to, in my mind. My dumb 20-year-old, 22-year-old mind.
It was a long ride, and it was a 10-week tour.
Yeah, but that voice, that kind of like inner calling, was what really made it weird.
Did you have to go back on the bus again? Or
Nope.
were they-
Thank God. They got our bus back, or a different one that looked exactly the same, the proper premieres, and all the good things, and we were back in safe territory. No dope in those. That was already there. Yeah, don't listen to those voices in the 80s buses, kids. You will pee-pee.
That's amazing.
Did that do it for you, kid?
That's great. Thank you for that spooky story.
It was spooky to me because I've never done that before, but that was as spooky as it gets.